A moment. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our educational webinar. This week, we are joined by Kristin from Avanti. We will actually be talking about navigating the new era of travel. So how travel's changed since COVID, what clients are looking for today that they weren't necessarily looking for in 2019. As we go through, feel free to add your questions to the Q&A panel, specifically because if you add them to the chat and there's a lot of chatter happening, they'll get lost in there, where the Q&A lets us actually track everything and answer it that way. If you're watching the recording, feel free to send any emails to myself or Kristin, which I will put in the description of the video, so that we can follow up with you as well. But Kristin, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Kristin. I'm with Avanti Destinations, and I've been with Avanti for about 7 years now. I have been in the travel industry for over 40 years. I hate to admit, but it just makes me feel a little old, but it is my passion. So I really appreciate the opportunity to tell you guys a little bit about Avanti. Maybe some of the changes that have happened within the travel industry during the post-COVID period and why things are happening the way they are.
Excellent. Yeah, so one of the biggest changes that I'll just kick us off with is the timing for travel planning. Before COVID, people could plan trips a couple of months beforehand and have a fantastic time. Today, I'm seeing it, but I don't know if you all are either. People have to start planning months out, and destinations are filling up. DMCs and tour operators are pulling new reservations for the next 60 days because they're so overwhelmed or they have no inventory. What are you guys seeing on your end with all that?
So at Avanti, what we have, some of the challenges that are occurring, and I think it's important for everybody to know this, is that the United States opened up after COVID, post-COVID, a lot earlier than other countries. So these other countries are still trying to get their legs under them, and they're still trying to get up and running. So the lack of inventory is not just there because of things completely closing down, but maybe certain boutique style hotels are not up to 100% with their cleaning staff. So they can't open every room. They don't have the luxury of that. And these are all things that are happening in the background that us as travel advisors may not know, but it's good to know because then we can explain it to the customer and why we can't possibly get that room, even though it shows available online. Tour operators are having to source from various different avenues now to try and get that space. It is a new world out there. And the reopening period is not just hotels. It's also, well, we've all seen it with the airlines, sadly, been a bit of a challenge, but then also it trickles down to trains. It trickles down to ferries. It trickles down to transfers. Many of you are finding it very difficult and getting frustrated with tour operators because an airline has made a schedule change, or now their clients are not arriving until maybe 3 hours later or even a day later than they were before. And when they call, they say, sorry, we know you paid for your transfer, but we can't accommodate you at that time. And it's not that they want to tell you that, or we want to tell you that. It's a reality now. Whereas we might not be able to get somebody to pick them up. They may be busy. So it's just a reality. And I think that if we, as the travel advisors, and the clients are coming to us because they want us to help them, we can't take them on their trip for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think if we're forthright with them from the get-go and say, hey, if this happens to you while you're on your trip, please don't let it destroy your entire holiday. Call the numbers, see if we can get a new transfer. If you can't, catch a cab, save your receipts, do a post-travel claim when you get back, or even a claim with your insurance, because that would most likely be a valid thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like we've got transfers. I've had clients that get in late, like it wasn't even necessarily the same day that the cancellation came through for the flight. It was a couple of days before the flight. They notified them that the hours were changed, and now we have a transfer that can't pick them up because the tour operator is already at capacity for when their new flight's coming in. And thankfully they had trip insurance and they were able to get a trip interruption claim filed, because it's not a good situation. And some of the advice that I've started giving out to all of the people traveling right now is just kind of go with the flow, roll with the punches. Like the big things will get fixed, but if it's something small that we can work around, don't let it destroy the trip, and
Right.
we will deal with it on the back end, because we can kind of work through some things for them while they're gone. But if it's something major, like the cruise gets canceled while they're in flight, then that's something that we have to deal with right away. But if it's a transfer, get them to the hotel, figure out an Uber or another transfer company, and then deal with the refund or the travel insurance claim once they get home.
Right. And I think that the confidence level of the agent, when they're coming into discussing this with the client, it should be on the forefront. It shouldn't be on the back end, because then that knowledge is power. And you're not bringing this up as a negative to your customer, but you're empowering them to take their holiday. It's especially with everybody wants, I think also FIT, Europe, other countries, FIT has become such a sought after product right now. And that's more so because during COVID, people could take cruises and they could do the all-inclusives. And it is revenge travel to the max right now. And so I think that also encouraging the customer, if the price point is too cost prohibitive because of these things, the airlines are ridiculously high right now. And our other things. I mean, that's the way it is. But if you can say, you know what, instead of just saying, well, that's the price, here it is, maybe encourage them to travel in the off season or the shoulder season, or book for next year. That's the type of advice they're actually coming to you for, I believe, in my opinion. I also believe that, the more forthright you are with them up front, the less problems you'll have on the back end.
Yeah, no, totally. And kind of just touching on the suppliers, during COVID, we saw it through hotels, we saw it through airlines, tour operators, restaurants, people downsized, and the businesses had to do it in order to stay alive. And throughout the season, the COVID season, however you want to phrase it, some tour operators went out of business. And so now our tour operators and DMCs are having to find new contracts or rework their contracts because who they went to for the last 10 years may not even be around anymore. And that's creating issues in and of itself, because now they can't necessarily speak to the quality because it's a new relationship. And our clients might see some hiccups along the way, or they haven't replaced them because, kind of like with the transfers, they just don't have enough cars to drive or enough drivers to drive those cars, because both car prices and drivers have been hard to find the last couple of years. And so it creates this bottleneck. And with that revenge travel not even peaked yet, we are in a position right now where prices are going up, demand's going even higher, but supply hasn't really gone up at the pace that we needed to.
Exactly. As well as you can't, companies now can't judge So when usually we would judge production on dollar volume, right? You can't do that anymore because the price has gone up. So you could have fewer travelers and still be at the same. So I think as an industry, we all need to look at that overall, because we don't want to get caught, for lack of a better term, with our pants down later when the prices do go back down and we haven't beefed up our passenger count.
Yeah.
So, and that trickles all the way down to the agency level, because again, that will affect you guys. It's and in an industry as a whole. And so the airlines are looking at this, and in an effort to bring down their price points, that's why you're seeing so many schedule changes. They're trying to funnel every flight through a gateway.
Yep.
And so many schedule changes, and trains are doing the same. People will say, why can't I get that train? I show it exists. Well, because now everybody's back in the office in Italy, and that's a commuter train, and they're saving that for commuters. There's so much happening in the background right now. It's insane. And I will apologize up front for the fact that many even of the tour operators and their staff don't really have the luxury of time of figuring out why that's happening either. So they can't give you a solid answer. Like when they say, why can't I have that train? That res agent very well possibly could not know the answer to that question. It's been extremely tough for tour operators such as ourselves, who do FIT and more intricate bookings, to stay on top of things, because our staff is all new too.
Yep.
And it's not as easy as just plugging in an all-inclusive hotel and the air and a transfer. It's much more ingrained. We have hired and hired and hired. And I know that other tour operators have done the exact same thing. But for us, it takes 3 months to train somebody, to put them on the floor to help you. Sadly, you, the agent, probably are going to know better what you want at this point, because we don't have the luxury of training them on everything. So you might know the destination better. So you might have to work as a partner with us to guide our people through. They all know how to book it and get it, but they may not know exactly what's in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that across the board with every cruise line, every tour operator, every wholesaler that I've worked with. We've gotten through the age of 6-hour holds, thankfully. But now when we get to somebody, they're new, and we've all been new at some point and needed to learn on the job. And having the patience when you're calling someone is extremely important right now. I mean, actually, it's important every time you call somebody, but even more important now, because we may really do know more about it. And sometimes walking them through how to look it up or what you're specifically looking for, being as specific as possible, is going to go a long way to make sure that the information that we share or that we get back from them to share with the client is going to be accurate. Or if the modification or whatever you're calling about, because we've all been there, we've all gotten that new person on the phone and just felt like we knew their system better than they did. And it's probably because we did, but they're still learning, and they'll get there and they'll be able to whiz through it faster than we can at some point, because they're dealing with that specific system all day, every day, where we're dealing with 1,000 systems across all of our suppliers.
Right. Exactly. And that's another thing that we talk about at Avanti. We have beefed up our system and our travel agent portal during COVID, and it is amazing. It's not the end all be all. I don't think any system really is, but it is pretty amazing. And on that note, you can go in and you can start to curate yourself, and any company that you can do that with, it is a big help, because we truly, truly value the travel agent as a partner. We're not, we don't consider, I guess I still consider ourselves a supplier, but it's of travel that we all partner in. So definitely has to be a partnership, not just you said, he said, he said, she said. I mean, if we infight, it just doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
I think that we all have to start to band together, and where we, even with the airlines, they deserve kindness too. I mean, it's just, one, it's a necessary evil. You need the airlines to get there. So let's try and help them out of this mess as best we can.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom the discussions that they have internally.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I was a fly on their wall when they're figuring out their routes and what they're going to do. But other times I don't want to be anywhere near them, like Southwest over Christmas time. So,
No.
but the patience is really what the key takeaway is for that is when you're interacting with the supplier, do as much research as you can, whether it's like Avanti's portal, it's been rebuilt during COVID, and they're not the only company that did that. There's a few out there that rebuilt everything when travel was slow, using that time when otherwise they wouldn't have been able to, because we're all using it every day, where when you have a system downtime or a system slow time, that's a great time to do updates, and they took advantage of it. Or like Pleasant Holidays, Journeys, Classic, they've all made updates. And that helps because we can get in, build out the basic footprint of the trip, and then if we need specifics, give them a call so that we can get the rest plugged in, or those things that we can't do online, have them make the change.
And it really is, in right now, I mean, the probably biggest complaint is when I call in, I can't get through. So work smarter, not harder, use these systems that have been updated. And yes, maybe it takes a little bit of time to learn to use them, but then again, it's less time than sitting on hold.
Yeah, well, and it's also you're investing in yourself. If you take the time to
You are
learn
investing in yourself.
your supplier of choice, whether it's Avanti or Cruising Power with Celebrity and Royal, like if you learn that system, you're investing in your own business because you can whiz through it faster than you could before. And that time is money when you're trying to turn around quotes. So it just helps you get through things a lot faster if you can take that time. So like an hour of training saves you hours throughout your career.
Yeah, and I do believe that Avanti and other companies have made these investments, just in, like, people as myself. I actually was an RSD for many, many, many years, and switched over into training and just helping people learn how to navigate the Avanti system. And I can't make a reservation. I don't help with problems, but I can get you to where you need to be. And other companies are following along this vein too. So, I know that other companies as well as ours have many, many, many online training programs too. And like Scott said, it is an investment in yourself. Doctors go back to training. I could say I've been in this industry for over 40 years and I know it all. I don't know it all. So many things have changed and they'll continue to change, and we should want them to. They're evolving, they're getting better. And COVID actually has given us the opportunity of a hard restart to fix some of the things that weren't so great, but we never had the luxury of time of upgrading or fixing.
Yep.
So in a roundabout sort of way, we can't look back. Let's keep trudging forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because we all, like, hopefully everyone took time during COVID. If you just started during COVID, props to you. You can shout out in the chat that you just started, which is phenomenal. Now, as we're going through, everyone, if you have the specific topic that you want us to talk about, feel free to add it to the chat. We're happy to expand into a lot of different areas. This is really kind of open discussion between me and Kristin, but also between everyone in the room. So feel free to add it in. and we'll cover it there throughout throughout the next little bit. So something that I've noticed, and I'm sure everyone else has seen something along the same lines, is travel insurance. Pre-COVID, travel insurance seemed like a luxury to a lot of people. It wasn't an expense that they really wanted to add on. They didn't really understand the value, which partially is a failure on my part necessarily, because I wasn't educating them as well as I probably could have. But also they saw it as an added expense on top of their thousands of dollars cruise or wherever, and they didn't want to add on this extra couple of packages. But now nearly every booking that I make has some level of travel insurance with it. And is this something that you're seeing on your end as well?
We are 100% seeing this. And whether it be the insurance provider that we use or your own, I highly, highly, highly say, please, please, please. And if you have a hard time selling it, you know, like people might say, well, I bought it for my last trip and then I got a trip credit because COVID or something. It was a different time. That was a different time. But another way to actually try and encourage people to take the travel protection is to remind them that U.S. health insurance usually does not cover you when you're out of the country. They may reimburse you later. They may not. True life story, just heard about it last night from my father. A friend was visiting in another country, fell, hit his head. Ended up in the hospital for 3 days, hit his head that bad. He did not take travel insurance, and thank goodness it was a country where hospital care was not that expensive, was able to pay for it. His health insurance said, we'll reimburse you on the flip side. Never have. So, you know, things of that nature. Health insurance, people, you know, your health insurance in the US, they can find ways to get out of paying anything. But, and then again, please don't. I encourage all of you, don't talk too in depth about the pieces of health insurance, or not health insurance, but of travel insurance. Just call it travel protection. And if they want specifics, give them the phone number of whatever provider you're using, and they need to speak to them. That came into play, oh gosh, many years ago. And now it's to the point where if you give misinformation on travel insurance or travel protection, as we should call it, you can be sued. And I'd hate to see that happen to anybody. So protect yourselves as an agent and an agency, and give them the information, thoroughly encourage them to take it. I believe there are, you know, there's several ways they can get it. They can get it through the provider of whoever's providing their trip. They can get it through you if you have an outside provider. But again, it's still, you're just giving them the information for a different company.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's really great advice. My go-to when I'm emailing out a quote to them through the travel insurance company is, if you have any what if questions about coverage, give them a call, because they're the ones that are licensed to answer it. We don't really want to give out any of those questions because we're not licensed by each of our states to actually answer them.
It is true. And, you know, it has happened to agents in the past. So that's why I caution. But and honestly, I don't want to be a licensed or insured insurance person. I don't know insurance. I don't want to really know insurance unless I need to use it.
Yeah, no, I agree. My mom was in insurance her entire life, and it's an industry that I had no desire to get into. She was not upset that I didn't want to go into it because she said it's too much of a headache.
Yeah.
Anyway, so kind of jumping topics a little bit, which Rhonda, I see your question, and that kind of gives us a good segue to the next thing that I was going to ask or bring up is planning fees. Planning fees within the travel agency circles are kind of a heated topic. You have people that are charging them, people that aren't charging them. Um, from a post-COVID stance, I'm happy to say that most of us are. So if you aren't yet charging them, there's some opportunity there for you to increase your revenue, but also get rid of tire kickers, because they're not going to work with you if they just are looking for a basic quote and pay you for it. I suppose there are some people that would, but they are very few and far between. So you're not wasting your time, and you're building better relationships with clients because they understand the value of your actual experience, opposed to just being a pencil pusher pulling together a quote. But Rhonda's specifically asking about Avanti charging a fee for FITs.
No. So no, we do not charge a planning fee. We do charge a deposit. I do highly suggest, and we can collect additional fees for you. So we do give the agent the luxury of bundling in their fee into the quote they're going to give their person. So you can bundle it into that if you want. If you don't want it to be too as transparent, I don't know, that's up to you. It's your call, but we will collect it for you. We do have to take a 5% off the whatever you charge for the credit card processing fees to process the fee for you, but we can do it for you. We don't charge a fee ourselves for planning. No. We do charge a $400 per person non-refundable deposit. And I guess you could call that a planning fee. I don't know. Not really. It is a deposit. And it is a necessary evil, because when you contact us and we start curating this trip for you, when it's time to put the deposit down, we've already done a lot of work on that. And our people need to be paid, you need to be paid. So yes, we do have a $400 non-refundable deposit, but that goes towards the cost of the trip. It's not a planning fee.
Awesome. Yeah.
And also when it comes to deposits, just a quick sidebar. When it comes to the deposits, every trip is a new day with Avanti, because every person is actually doing something different every single trip. And every time it could be a different deposit amount. So people will say, what's the deposit? Well, it changes greatly, because if somebody's doing something that has non-refundable error, then the non-refundable error has to be paid for up front. That gets collected with the deposit. If there's a train that's non-refundable that needs to be paid for up front, then that goes into the deposit. And then some things might be non-refundable, things might be every component. We're putting in a bunch of different components, and we have to work within every environment that we touch. We have to work in the ferries environment, the trains environment, the airlines environment. We have to work in, we don't own any of the product. And that is similar for most tour operators. Unlike the cruise lines, they do own their product, which is the thing of beauty for them. It makes it much easier to use.
Yeah, and to plan out and make sure that all the pieces fit together right.
Yes.
Because that's true for everyone, whether you're going through Kensington for a luxury vacation or a small budget DMC for a backpacking trip, if they exist. They're doing parts of their components that are working, and so non-refundable deposits, while I see them more often than I did before COVID, they're an integral part of the process, because it locks things in. They're putting money down for something that may be non-refundable to them. And
Right.
so it's educating the client to understand that, yes, this is non-refundable because things have already happened for something that they committed to. And I've actually had a client that got so used to COVID cancellation policies that once things started to tighten back up and we got back to the normal of when you commit, she wasn't happy when she wanted to cancel a trip and it was a non-refundable amount, because she was so used to it and she was trying to find every way to get a credit or her cash back. And it's like, this isn't how it works anymore. before we booked it, I gave her the warning that these are non-refundable. We cannot cancel this. This is you committing. And 2 weeks before the trip, she's like, I don't want to go. I've got something else going on. And it's just that flexibility doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist anymore. And we are getting back to what we used to be where, you buy an airline ticket, it's non-refundable. You can't change it. I want to touch on that a little bit, just because. So schedule changes. This has been such a nightmare for all of us, and mostly for the customer, because sometimes we know about them, sometimes we don't. The airlines will always say that you knew about it. Oh, we told your travel agent. No, they probably didn't. And it's very, very frustrating. So schedule changes, I would actually encourage your customer, one, to call and reconfirm their flight schedule 2 or 3 days prior to travel. Just have, or you call and reconfirm their flight schedule 2 or 3 days prior. Or just remember that when a schedule change comes through, say to somebody like ourselves, like at Avanti, we get hundreds of them, hundreds. We do not have the luxury of time of picking up the phone and calling each of you, and then you calling your customer and saying, here's some other schedules, what would you like? Because sadly, what they give us the first time around is the best they have. And if we don't snag it up at that exact moment, your customer may not be leaving for another week because there's nothing else to put them on. And this has happened. And so now we changed our policy. We do accept schedule changes as fast as we possibly can. And then we do send an email to you with it. That's the best we can do at this point. It's as fast as we can go. Even if we had 10 people working that desk.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't make a difference. We're just going as fast as we can. And there's not that luxury of, oh, I'm going to call you, the agent, and then you're going to call your customer, and then you're going to discuss some options. And 3 days later, after they talk about it with their wife, then they're going to call you back, and then you're going to call us back. By then, they're not leaving for 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's schedule changes are a huge thorn right now. And this is,
it's not
talk
nice.
about a near travel, like you're not booking necessarily the specific flight anymore. You're booking a ticket to get to the destination. How you get to the
Good way to
destination
put it.
is going to be kind of wishy-washy. It's kind of like the cruise contract. Like you book a cruise, you book the space on the ship. Where the ship goes, it's up to the cruise line at that point. So it's just a matter of having that flexibility. And something that I imagine most of us do is, like, we have our itinerary apps, which Travefy, UMapped, Access, or the plethora of other ones that are out there. They have real-time flight notifications when things change, in terms of delays and or like cancellations. That'll give us a warning. However, it doesn't necessarily actually tell you what the new flight is. Like if the airline rebooked them, it doesn't know because we have to put it in there. Which ironically, like I have a Delta Vacations trip for later this year, and their flights have changed since we booked in February 6 times. And I've gotten 2 emails out of those 6 times about the flight notifications changing. And so Delta is not even telling me that their own flights are changing for their own vacations. And so there's so many times that things are happening so quickly that systems aren't keeping up. And so like I personally have gotten into the habit of, I go through and check the PNRs on the website just a couple of times a month before they travel, just to make sure that they're still locked in. And like I've downloaded an app called Flighty, basically flight with a Y at the end, that you put in the flight information and it sends you real-time alerts. It tracks the plane and everything. But it gives me notifications before the airline sends out things, and even before like Travefy sends me a message that the flight's changed. So it's in real time as the systems are updating. There is a small fee for it, but I find it very worth it compared to being in a big mystery box.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So now, what's changed with Avanti in terms of how you all are working with travel agents in the post-COVID world?
Well, again, my new position where I am working with training people how to work with us, not really training them on destination. It's more critical that people learn how to work with us. And there is a huge pocket of brand new spanking agents out there that they need help. They need help. And like you said, Scott, so we all started somewhere. So let's help these people, because I hate to see them come in and think this industry is so terrible when it's the industry that I love, you know. So please, let's all try and help them. We also added, because of this new pocket of agents who, some of them started and were working full-time in travel during COVID because they had been let go or were furloughed from their day jobs, for lack of a better term. So now they're back at their day jobs and they are finding that they have to work off hours, not regular business hours. And you have to remember, Avanti is still a business, so we're still working business hours. So then what they have done is we have added after hours training, and we're doing after hours with Avanti, so that you guys can tap in. If you're working during the day, you can tap in at night and do a training. I know that us and a lot of other companies have added a whole bunch of not take this test and not do this thing to get this prize, but more, we want the serious people. We want the people who want to learn to work with us as a partner. And it's not just Avanti, it's all of us. And so we've added webinars online where you can go and on our site and on others, you can view destination webinars. Maybe you're not uber familiar with a destination and you want to bone up on it really quick before your customer comes in, or you talk to your customer because they want to go to Germany and you don't know anything about Germany. So they're on, and those things are available 24/7. Avanti only does business with travel agents, so your customer can see a few things about Avanti online, and that's a necessary evil because sometimes they want to know that having a website makes you legit.
Yeah.
And they want to know you're booking with a legit company. And you could say, oh, we know they're legit. They're part of ASTA. They're a part of whatever. That means nothing usually to the general consumer. So it's by doing these little webinars, and we have some that are just 15 minutes. We know time is precious right now. I mean, I had a guy who scheduled a training with me, and he was sitting in the back of his delivery truck. He was a UPS driver sitting in the back of his delivery truck, doing a training on his laptop on his lunch break. Because he was that serious about learning. So find those avenues, because there are so many more out there now, and there need to be. It was something that was needed. That's something we were lacking in, is getting new people trained. And so Avanti and the rest of the industry were really trying to help you guys. Anybody who's new, and or anybody who isn't new, but things have changed.
Yeah.
Once you think you know it, guess again. So that's one of the biggest changes that we've seen. We've also seen that that we need to tell people that there are differences between being a tour operator and a DMC. A lot of times, a lot of people don't understand the differences. So at Avanti, we're an FIT provider, but we still have to take and curate and put all those components together. And that is similar to what some DMCs are doing. But now we had to change our rules to say, all right, we're a provider of packages. So we're not a DMC. You can't just book a hotel, or you can't just a hotel only. Well, you can if it's 3 nights or longer and a certain price point. But we really want the people are traveling for their experiences.
Yeah.
So you can't just book a tour. And people will say, well, I see this tour online. I could book it online. Well, you can, yes, go ahead. But we don't want to tie up our phone lines with somebody booking just a tour. And this may sound crass, but it's to help all of you. so that when you have a package, you're not sitting on hold for somebody who's just booking a tour or just booking a train or just booking a car rental. That's not our specialty. So we, in essence, by changing the rules and saying you must have 3 nights hotel and you must have, so different things, it takes us right back to being more of a tour operator. We found that it is best not to give out the price break points on everything. Again, you're selling a package and you're more so selling yourself to the customer. So you need to instill confidence in them by exuding confidence. And so learning that is a skill. It really is a skill. It's not being a salesman more, but being able to differentiate and say, you know what? I know I'm in the customer service industry, but I can't hold your hand while you go up to the check-in counter. If you get to the airport and your flight's been changed while you're there, you have to do it yourself. I get so many customers that agents call us and say, hey, my customer's at the counter or in line or at the airport and their flight was changed. Even if we call the airline won't help us. They have to stay in line. And it's things like that really they're coming to you for. So it's changing our mindset, I guess.
Yeah, no, it totally is. And I just had a thought as you're saying that, and it already went away. But we've got suppliers all over the world that have started pulling back on what they're offering in terms of like the price breakdowns. And I'm sure other people on this call have gotten that same question of like, well, can I get the price breakdown? Because I want to see how much everything costs, because I'm trying to hit a specific number, or I want to make sure that I'm not getting swindled and paying more than I'm supposed to. And it's been a learning experience for myself and other agents that I've talked to and worked with on how we handle that, because in this environment that we're in now, the package price is reigning supreme, and like being able to explain that because it's a package, like there's contracted rates that are involved. The rates with each tour may or may not be publicly available. And I see Kyle's popping on. Oh, he's already muted again. But yeah, so you can like find ways to kind of talk to that point, but like what you're selling is the actual experience itself. Whether it's a quick little trip to the Canary Islands or a multi-week trip to Peru through every single town that they have. You're selling that experience, and the price is sometimes the price. And if it's too much above the budget, then they either weren't honest with what their actual budget was when they had the consultation, or they aren't seeing the value in it. And then that's when we have to pull in our partners to try to talk to what they're actually getting to sell that. And many of the DMCs or tour operators will jump on a call with us to help explain what they're getting and why it is what it is, because they want to be able to close it as much as we do. Especially on those customers that are kind of like on the fence of, well, seems like it's a lot, but I'm willing to do it if you can tell me why.
So along that vein, sometimes I caution about pulling in a partner to talk to the customer. And the reason for that is the customer has come to you and they look to you as the expert. I have done this in the past. And what has happened is then the customer is like, well, can I get your phone number? Why am I not booking with you directly? And so I hate to see anybody discredit themselves that way. But same token, you could always call me and say, hey, Kristin, can you help me figure out how I can position this? And then you give it to them so that it's coming from you. You found your resource, where to get the answer, and you get the answer. And then you can deliver it with confidence.
Yeah.
Because I do think as an industry, it's funny. The industry agents started dying off for a little while. probably before your time, Scott. But the industry started becoming a little stagnant because consumers felt they didn't need a travel agent. They didn't understand the value of a travel agent. And then certain things in the world have happened, including COVID, but 9/11, et cetera. And now they're seeing, you know what, I really need an expert. I need an expert. And that's why they're coming to you. It's not because they can't book it on their own. They find it's too hard, actually. And with the Avanti customer, 99% of them, before they come to you, they probably have already been online trying to do it themselves. And then they're coming to you.
I'd say that's true of all of mine too, is they've all been trying to do it. They get overwhelmed, and that's why they're hiring a travel agent. And then I'll say that, like, pulling in the supplier is definitely kind of a last ditch effort that I ever use, because they're sitting on the fence for a bit too long and we need an answer one way or the other. But I also would never pull in one that can be booked direct. I would only ever work with one like that if it's a travel agent only option, because I don't want to give them the opportunity to say, oh, well, XYZ company is who was doing my trip, I can go to them.
And
Like,
they'll
well,
Google it and they'll find out they can.
yeah. So
Trust
yeah,
me,
like
we actually do not take consumer direct ever, and still they find us, and
Yeah.
still they get in there. And we'll tell them, hey, sorry, call your travel agent. You need a reference here.
Well, and because talking about AMA, I know we were talking about this in Utah, like AMA, you can't go on necessarily and book it yourself online. Like, you have, like, everything that they have tells you to contact a travel advisor. I mean, they will take direct bookings, as I'm sure everyone knows, but they don't make it easy. It's not like Carnival, where they have client go in, put in their information, and they can book it faster than if they called us first half the time, but they probably won't get what they're actually expecting, which is why they really want to call us.
Yep.
But suppliers like that are ones that I specifically really like to work with. They're the ones that value the travel agent. And in the post-COVID world, our role has been highlighted for every traveler, because they have found how complex traveling is, how many flight changes they're getting, how few options there are because hotels aren't open, hotels don't have capacity, new hotels that were supposed to be there were canceled, or whatever the case is. And so they're working with a travel advisor because they need that expert, and having somebody around is probably the best thing that COVID could have done for us, if we want to look for bright sides out of COVID.
Yep. I have to say that 100% true.
Which we're just under 10 minutes left. If anybody has any thoughts, any topics that you want us to cover really quick, we can go ahead and add them to the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, we'll kind of chat for another couple of moments here, and then we'll wrap up, unless somebody wants to add something in. And so, just kind of, I'm sure everyone knows this, but I want to make sure that it's said. Passport times continue to be a struggle. So always ask that question in that first consultation. What is your passport status? Do you have a passport? Yes or no? If they do, what is the expiration date? Because if they've got an expiration date that might have expired during COVID and they completely forgot, I've had that one a couple of times already. They're going to have to reapply, and they'll probably have to apply for a new one because it expired so long ago. So that turnaround time's a little bit longer, just like the person that doesn't have it at all. But then also, if it's going to expire early 2024 and they want a trip this fall, they may not be able to go without renewing it, because there's the 6-month window for most countries. So just make sure that you're always asking what that passport status is before you book an international trip.
We actually at Avanti changed our terms and conditions, and I know some agents embrace it, others are giving a little bit of pushback. But our terms and conditions now say that when you phone in or when you email to get a quote, you must have full passport names for every passenger. You must have their dates of birth. You must have their passport number. You must have the expiration date. And that is a protection for you and for us. We've had too many people, again, when you're looking at a tour operator, we put something in our system, it's in our system. We can change it in our system, but it may have gone to an obscure small airline system. It may have gone to a train system. And when we change it in our system, it may not necessarily change in their system. So your customer could incur problems down the road on their trip if this information isn't correct from the get-go. And so honestly, it is a great way to cut bait. If somebody won't give you that information, they're not serious. Serious customers have no problem handing over that information and saying, here's my passport stuff. You know, it's not like you can go out and steal their identity from it or anything. I'm not that skilled. No. But what I'm saying is, you know, I do believe that other companies are going to follow suit. So beginning conversation, Scott, like you said, first thing, before you start even working on something, ask them for that. Ask them just for a copy of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's simple enough to do. And hopefully they're becoming your customer for life. So you'll always have their copy so you can hurry up and make their next trip without having to ask for it again.
Yeah, and because I mean, and it's right in my demographics form. So it's the second form that they fill out after they sign the terms and conditions, that they have to give me their passport information. Like there's only a couple of circumstances where I will let them skip it, whether it's a closed loop cruise, domestic, or the trip is a year out where they have time to get it. But if it's any travel within the same calendar year, I'm not doing any research until they give me that passport, because there's no guarantee that they're going to get it on time and or will even remember to apply, because you run into those people as well. Which Kyle just sent me a direct message. He had a client arrive in London with only 85 days left on their passport.
They turned them
EU
around.
requires 90. They turn them away. And like that stings for Kyle because he has to deal with that. That stings for the client because their vacation is now ruined. They're out the money most likely because that probably isn't going to cover as an insurance claim because it's their own fault. And it stinks for the airline because that airline that flew them over there with an invalid passport now has to pay a fine.
They get spanked. Yep.
So like that's a bad situation all around. So check.
And it makes us in the industry look not so professional. And I hate to see that because I do know travel agents are professional and I do know they are such a necessary, vital part of the travel industry. Seriously.
Yeah, no, totally. We are. We can just span ourselves a little bit more. Anyway, everyone, thanks for joining today. If you have any follow-up questions, I will be emailing out this recording sometime this evening after it finishes processing and I get through a few more meetings and emails. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself. I'll also include Kristin's email in that email, so you can reach out to her as well. If you have any questions about Avanti, she's more than happy to talk to you about them. And then also one last favor for you all, there will be a survey link in that email. Please complete it for me. It lets me know what your thoughts are on the sessions that we provide so that we can improve. We want to continue offering these. We want to make sure that they are valuable to everyone that attends and watches them. If you're watching it live, the link to this, or if you're watching the recording, sorry, it will be in the description on YouTube, so you can grab that survey link there. But otherwise, our next meeting or our next webinar is next week. And it is our supplier spotlight of G Adventures. So I hope to hear you all about that. And I'm just reading Kyle's. Sorry, Kyle just messaged me. I'm not trying to share what he said, but if he wants to come off mute, he's happy to. Otherwise, y'all have a great rest of your week, and I will see everybody next week for G Adventures.
Thank you guys for including me.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Have a great day.